Welcome to our Bible readings from John's Gospel. As time has gone on, I think some of us have begun to feel the strain of lockdown and of the pandemic, even as we begin to plan for relaxation and reopening churches and all kinds of things. For some, there's an initial burst of excitement and enthusiasm at the challenge, but that's waned. For some, we were directly isolated and our mental health may have been threatened through the separation that we've had from other people, and we found it hard to cope pretty much all the way through. Some others of us were working flat out all the way through the pandemic because of our occupation as nurses or frontline workers serving the community. But the strain can begin to tell, and it's been a hard time for many people. And we need to understand that and know that God knows it, He understands, and He is with us in it. So I want to read to you today from John's Gospel, chapter 16, verse 31. John 16, verse 31. And Jesus is getting His disciples ready for His departure, for His death, crucifixion, and His eventual departure, His ascension into heaven. And He says this in verse 31 of John 16. "Do you now believe?" Jesus replied. "The time is coming, and in fact has come, when you will be scattered, each to your own home. You will leave me all alone, yet I am not alone, for my Father is with me. I have told you these things, so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." Now, He's doing this, talking about His betrayal, crucifixion, when they would scatter and they would hide, but also to His eventual departure from this earth in a physical sense. And He's preparing them for His departure, for this isolation. Of course, when it actually happened, they still hid and still were frightened at His betrayal and His execution. But He was trying to get them ready for it. It's just interesting that for me, and I guess for you as you heard it read, there's a kind of direct parallel with our experience over the last few months. You will be scattered each to your own home. Albert Camus wrote the famous book, The Plague, La Peste in French, in which he talked about the quarantine that the North African town experienced with the plague was like an exile at home. Being French, they were still allowed to go to restaurants. It was only the sick who were quarantined. We've all been quarantined in the sense that we haven't been able to go out or go to restaurants or cafes, but they were French, and so they couldn't close down their restaurants and cafes in that novel. Of course, in real life in France they did, and they're just reopening now, in case any of you get the wrong impression from what I'm saying. But exile at home was the phrase that he used, and it made a lot of sense to me as I reread The Plague during the pandemic. Exile at home, scattered, each to your own home, isolated, separated. And that's how many of us have felt, haven't been able to go out. Talked to a lot of elderly people who haven't seen anyone physically, talked on the phone, but not physically for months. Today, we're starting a new phone line, conference call for elderly people who are not perhaps geared up for Zoom and for WhatsApp conversations, but they can pick up their phone and have a conference call. And we're going to be doing a little Bible study, a little kind of prayer time. The Center for Old People that I help with has called it the Uplifting and Spiritual Time with Steve. The uplifting and spiritual time with Steve. Let's hope it will be uplifting and spiritual. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do, to serve people who are isolated. Some people think Christianity hasn't worked for them. And we find a large number of people, quite a large number of people, who just give up on it because they say, hasn't worked, isn't true. And what they've had is a transactional view of Christianity. If I do this, then I will get this benefit. If I obey God, if I'm faithful, then He will bless me. If I live the Christian life, then things will go well with me in my life. And they've said, it isn't true. That's a transactional view. And people have a transactional view of marriage sometimes. I need to get what I want in order to remain committed. And people have a transactional view of their relationship with God or of faith. But it's not like that. Jesus himself says here, in this world you will have trouble. It's going to happen. It might be physical ill health. It might be relationship problems. It might be finance, money worries. It might be stress and pressure. It might be mental illness. Whatever it is, there will be trouble. There's a realism about Jesus' words. He's warning his disciples, you're going to have trouble. He's warning us, we're going to have trouble. But he says, take heart. Be of courage. I have overcome the world. Jesus has overcome the world in his death, his resurrection, and his ascension into glory, where he's seated now on a throne. He has overcome the world. We will have trouble, but it's not some kind of cosmic bargain or contract between us and God. And if we do our bit, he'll do his bit. He warns us, you will have trouble. I will have a cough. Hopefully it's not the cough. So in this world you will have trouble, but take heart.